I don't know about you, but when I'm scrolling on Instagram and I see a good homeschool hack, I save it, and when I implement them, sometimes it can make the world of a difference in my homeschool day. And so I have come up with 20 different hacks that I have used over the past few years of homeschooling that I thought might be helpful for you. If you're new here, hi, my name is Sarah. Here at Homeschool Glue, I like to share all about intentional motherhood, homeschooling tips, and just relatable homeschool content as a Charlotte Mason homeschooling mom to now 4 little kids, 3 girls and 1 boy, ages 3 months all the way up to 10 years. And so I just like to share my journey and give some tips along the way that have worked for us, and just be a light of encouragement who also needs encouragement from time to time. I'm definitely not a perfect mom, but when I find something that works, I love to share it here and connect with other moms, because we're usually at home with our kids and it's fun to get to connect with other moms here on the internet. So let's jump into the hacks. First of all, if you have multiple kids, and I don't think this is just a girl thing, but my 3 oldest are all girls, and so we have those times where like they're all bickering about whose turn it is for brushing their teeth and using this app or whatever it is, just to name one example, or who gets to go first at this. And like, for example, we're doing resurrection eggs this week for Easter, and I can never keep track of who opened the egg last because my brain is full of so many other things, and trying to keep track of who did the last thing for each thing we do can be really annoying. And a lot of it I just say, suck it up, buttercup, but for some things, I want to be fair. And so I came up with this little system where I take a Post-it note and a mini paper clip, I write their names on it, and then I just move the paper clip each time. I stick it down. Sometimes I'll tape it depending on how long it's going to be stuck to whatever it is. And that way I can keep track of who went first the last time, and it saves a lot of fighting and resentment. They can be mad at the Post-it note. They don't get to be mad at me. Another tip, if you are struggling with your kids getting certain tasks done before, say, screen time, or before supper, or before snack, or whatever it is, or maybe they want to go outside but they haven't completed their tasks. A few months ago, we were running into this. We have screen time every day around 2 p.m. and my girls weren't always completing their independent reading. My oldest wasn't practicing her times tables and things like that. And it was just becoming like one of those things where they're old enough to keep track of that on their own, and I felt like I was needing to keep track of it, but I want to encourage them to keep track of their own independent work, and they have a few hours to get it done and manage their own time. And so what I decided to do was just hop on to Canva, print up a really quick to-do list before screens, and I put it in a page protector, put it on the fridge with a magnet, and now they have to check off with a dry erase marker that they did all of their independent things before they can have screen time. So if they go to get the screen time and they haven't completed those things, then they have to go complete those. And it has really helped them. It has really helped encourage them to get those things done. And just like the other tip, they get to be mad at the paper, not at me, which is a win-win. Something I've been doing for years that saves so much time. Even though we don't have to get out of the house early in the morning, I do watch kids before school. And even if I didn't, it's just nice to not have to worry about cooking a huge homemade breakfast every morning, or prepping a breakfast the night before, or just resorting to cereal every day because I don't feel like making something homemade. What we do is usually every Saturday we will make a bulk breakfast. So maybe it's pancakes one week, or French toast sticks the next week, or protein muffins, or egg bites, or something along those lines, something that's freezable. And we will make a big batch of it that should last at least 3 or 4 more breakfasts if we eat it again. And what we do is we serve it on Saturday, and then we put the rest in the freezer, and then once a week we will pull out each of those. So by the time you do this for a month, you have 4 different breakfasts in your freezer at all times that you can pull out 4 different days of the week. And so that leaves one day to just do like eggs and toast, or a bagel, or some cereal, or oatmeal, or something like that. But you have 4 homemade, usually protein-packed breakfasts that you just pull out of the freezer, and they're nice and warm and nutritious, but I don't have to do any major cooking in the mornings, and this has saved us so much time. It's great for if you are going places like Co-op, or especially in the summertime, we like to get out and go pretty early, so this can be a great thing to do. Something I recently started doing that has been so helpful, I ran into this problem of not always remembering to request books at the library, and there were so many tasks that didn't need to be done on a weekly basis, but were just kind of falling off the radar because I didn't have a good routine for them. So I started implementing a monthly prep day. It's not even a monthly prep day, it's more like a monthly prep hour. I tend to do it the second to last Friday of the month so that I can do it for the next month and make sure I have time for the books I request to get to the library and then get to me. But I do a whole slew of things on this day. I request library books, I plan, I look through all of our curriculum and see if there's any supplies I need. I have a whole list on this. It's a free list you can get, and it's a Canva template so you can customize it to fit your needs, but I have included all the things I do and some other things that maybe would be helpful for any of you homeschooling parents out there. And so I will put a link to that in the description. But just having a dedicated time where you do a bunch of planning for your homeschool every month can save you so much time and a massive headache when the next month comes. If you are not new to my channel, this will come as no surprise as I've talked about these many times, but craft trays have saved so much of my sanity, I can't even tell you. I have very crafty kids. They're constantly playing with slime, Play-Doh, clay, beads, like things with little pieces, and especially now with a baby and a dog who likes to eat anything that falls on the floor the second it hits the floor. Craft trays have come in so handy for us. I got ours on Lakeshore, but they do have similar size for cheaper on Amazon. I will link below. But we just keep them in a drawer in our dining room, which is also our homeschool room, and our kids, anytime they get anything out with small pieces like Polly Pockets or beads or stamps, Legos if they're bringing those to the table, or anything messy like paint or Play-Doh or slime, anything like that, they will put it on a tray. They wash up super well, they are nice and big, and they have been a godsend. And so if you are finding yourself getting stressed about sensory play or painting or crafting or little pieces, especially if you have other little kids and they're putting things in their mouth, I implore you to get some craft trays because it may save some arguments and frustration in your home. Now, speaking of craftiness and artwork, I really encourage you to have a dump zone for your artwork. Now, ours is overflowing right now because it's the end of the school year, and I only usually go through it once or twice a year. I probably should go through it, but since it's the end of the year soon, I will just go through it at the end of the year. I like having a dump zone for my art because, first of all, it is a place where I can just keep everything, and then at the end of the year I go through it all and I save the ones that I want to save in their bins, which I will share more on this later. But I also have a blog post on my website about how we save memories and things like that at the end of the school year, so I will link that below. But I have these bins that each girl, and now my son, will have as well with their name on it, and it's a place to just keep everything that we want to save and give them at, when they leave our home. And so I just save artwork in there, and then I can go through, and I have, like, especially with my 4-year-old who just started really drawing this past year, we get to see the progression of her drawing. And so if I didn't hold on to a lot of it, I would just probably throw it away, and then I wouldn't get to see that progression over time. So it's nice to have a place to save it. And then also, if you have kids who just draw, color all the time, but then once in a while they're like, oh wait, I was still working on that. If you just put it away, you could still get it back out. And that way they're not seeing you throw away their artwork, which reminds me of that Bluey episode. But saving that and then going through it when they're not around at the end of the school year, once it gets full, like halfway through the year, just saves a lot of headaches, and it saves a lot of tears, and it gives you a good representation of what they did that year so you can save it for later. We just keep ours in the cabinet, and when it gets to the next shelf, that's when I usually go through it. So I definitely need to go through it, but we actually made it through a whole year this year, which is pretty cool. I am a super big advocate for activity bins, sensory play, and just having things that are on hand that you can give, especially to your little kids or your older kids during read alouds, to keep their hands busy. But not needing to go out and buy a ton of stuff and just shopping your home. And so I love activity bins. I've shared a lot about them on Instagram. I actually have a whole guide now with 60 different activity bin ideas. If you are interested, it's called Lessons with Littles, and I have those activity ideas and also lots of advice for homeschooling when you have littles underfoot as well. But I love activity bins. We do a whole slew of sensory ones. I do brain building ones. I just take random toys and put them together, and suddenly my kids are like, wow, that's so fun. I don't remember having this toy, or I don't remember ever playing with it in this way. And it has really helped during read alouds, and it has really helped my youngest daughter, who had her own struggles for sure once she dropped that morning nap and became part of our homeschool day the whole time. Was very challenging, and so activity bins have been kind of my secret weapon to making homeschooling with littles underfoot so much easier. One of the big headaches as a homeschool mom is being the cook 24/7, 365. As you get older, kids, they can do more on their own, but when you're still stuck in the littler ages, it can feel like you're cooking literally around the clock, and sometimes you just want to bash your head against the wall because it gets to be a lot sometimes, and we don't get paid like a cook does at a real school, and so it can be frustrating. So I really encourage you to come up with a meal rotation system. This has helped me so much. I rotate all of our breakfasts, I rotate all of our snacks, I rotate our lunches. So the only thing I'm really coming up with every week are our dinners, just because we like to try new things, but I definitely could put that on like a monthly rotation as well. So if you have like 5, 10, 15 snacks, breakfasts, lunches, or even dinners that you really like and could put in a rotation, that could save you so much work when it comes time to meal plan. And if you really want to go a step above, like have a whole weekly grocery list for each rotated schedule, and that way like you have your whole grocery list pretty much made every week, which would be even a step above what I do. But if meal planning is something that's really stressing you out, just get those things on rotation. It's okay to repeat things. It's okay for your kids to have the same thing often, and it will save you a lot of headaches. Another hack that I have absolutely loved is homeschooling family style. Now, I don't know if this is considered a hack, but there are some subjects that just lend themselves so well to family style learning. So I'm going to call it a hack because it does make homeschooling easier if you can homeschool in this way. Things like history, geography, the riches, so poetry, hymns, folk songs, virtue readings, art study, picture study, composer study, all of those are great family subjects, Bible, that you could do as a family, and you don't have to like spend all this time teaching all your kids different versions of that depending on their age. You can come together as a family and save so much time. And things like read alouds also are great for all ages. High schoolers down to first graders can find a lot of enjoyment out of a family read aloud. I am 35 and I love reading the books with my kids. We're reading the Chronicles of Narnia right now, and I am getting probably more out of it than my kids even are. So don't be afraid to put your kids together even if they are very different in age. There are a lot of subjects that you can branch off and assign harder readings or harder lessons to your older ones, but still be learning like the same time period, the same geographical region, the same riches. It can really save you so much time, and it is so beautiful to learn together as a whole family and see what you can gain from all those different age perspectives. If you're interested in a family style riches curriculum, I have my daily riches I will link below with all of those riches that you can do family style. And if you're looking for a family style science, I also have my seashore science now available, which is great for summertime or any time of year, but it's always fun to learn science as a whole family as well. Another hack, especially if you feel really stretched thin, is to listen to audiobooks during lunch. So if you don't feel like you have time for a family read aloud, or maybe you just didn't get to your history reading that day, if you can get an audiobook version of that book, you can listen during lunch. My kids usually are pretty good at listening during lunch because they're eating. And I find, I don't know what it is about lunchtime, but that's when they get so silly if we don't have something that we're listening to. And so it's a win-win across the board. I think they're just like pent up energy. And so having an audiobook, they usually sit, eat, focus, they get the reading done, and we're not driving mom crazy or each other crazy. Something else I did in this dresser right here is I assigned a drawer for each child. So I have these 4, you can only see 3 of them, but these smaller drawers at the top, and I was running into this problem of like my kids each have their own slime for some things, and they have little creations they're working on, and they have like notebooks, sketchbooks, and things like that that are just theirs, and I want to honor that. Sometimes we have things in our home that are just for one child and not for everybody. And so I was sitting here like, what could I do? Because this is becoming frustrating for me, trying to keep track of whose is whose, and I don't want them having to go to their room constantly to get stuff out, and I don't want slime and stuff like that in their rooms. And so this dresser worked really well. It's from IKEA because it has those small drawers, but you could do this with a bin, on a shelf. You could do it with in a cabinet, whatever works for your family, maybe a little storage box. But having a place near where you homeschool or near where you do crafts and things like that, or read alouds, it can be really helpful to have a little spot where they each have their own things. If your kids do have separate, they get an activity book for their birthday, or a paint by sticker, or things like that, or they get their own set of gel pens that they don't want to share and they don't have to share. Each kid has their own set of gel pens. They can go in their little drawer, and I absolutely love that it has a limit to what they can keep. So every few months my kids go through these, recycle things, or maybe they say, you know what, I'm okay sharing this, so it gets added to the family collection of whatever it is. But they have their own little space in our homeschool space, but it's not overflowing, and it has saved a lot of frustration. You're gonna notice that there are quite a few food related ones here, but something I like to do once a week to mix it up and just use up leftovers really is the key to this, is muffin tin lunches. I have been doing this since I was a daycare provider. I have the small 2x3 6-cup muffin tins from the Dollar Tree, so they're very inexpensive, and I just use those as their plate. So we have 6 different spots for things, and so I will take the most random of things, leftovers, maybe some popcorn or meat sticks or cottage cheese or yogurt, pretzels and hummus or whatever it is, and I put them in there, and it's fun for the kids. It's just a fun thing, and it helps me get rid of leftovers or stuff that's about to go bad in the pantry, and they're none the wiser. Something I love to use and can think of so many other uses for that maybe I'll venture out and use them for these other ideas as well, are menu covers. So I have my morning menus in my shop where I have all these different sheets that you can print out for each child depending on their age, and there's things like weather and emotions and shapes and spelling and times tables. There's so many different sheets in there that you can use, and we put them in a menu cover because it's dry erase, and it's really nice because you can fit 8 different sheets in there and customize it to each child. But you can do so many different things with this. You could have one that you just use as scratch paper for math, so you're not wasting paper. You just slide paper in there and they can use that for their scratch paper, and it's more fun than pencil and paper because you use a dry erase on it. You could do it for geography and have maps and have them like label the different countries and then erase it and have to do it again. You could use it for copy work. You could use it for practicing math facts, spelling words you could do in there. Basically any sheet you might want to reuse over and over again, you can just stick it in a morning menu or some kind of page protector and use it over and over again. I just highly recommend having these. They're not a lot of money. They have held up really well for us, and they're just a really fun, unique way to have kids write on things but be able to reuse it. Another hack I have is when your kids have screen time, if you allow screen time in your home, is to set aside some time of that screen time doing learning games. I love doing this because my kids still find them very fun, but they're practicing things that we're learning, or they're learning something new that I haven't taught them. And so yes, it's screen time, but they're learning without really realizing it, and it's fun for them because they get to use a screen, which we don't do a whole lot. So some of my favorite apps are Teach Your Monster to Read. It's great for your, preschool through 2nd graders, depending on, what level they're at, teaching and reinforcing those letter sounds and phonics. Khan Academy Kids also has so many different games on there for different ages. It's for about ages 2 to 8, and so you can find lots of different subjects on there to teach or reinforce what you're learning. Champion Math is my favorite for practicing math facts like subtraction, addition, multiplication, and division. I have used this a lot with my oldest daughter to practice her math facts just to get her really good and fast at them. And then There are these different apps for each grade by Rosie Mosey LLC. I will put links to all these below so you can find them. But it has a little owl on the picture, and then it will say like grade 2 or grade 4. And they have so many different like subjects within those, so they can do geography for some ages, or math, or reading, or science, or spelling, whatever it is. There's so many different subjects that are catered to that age range, and so they could even go in and just practice random things, or you can have them practice a certain subject on there. But I have really loved that one as well. Now, when it comes to art, I have found art something really hard to teach in our homeschool. Like I said, my kids are super crafty on their own, so they're doing art on their own a lot. But when it comes to actually teaching them like art skills and something like that, I am just very not talented in this area. It's something like I am very creative in other ways, but trying to like paint a realistic picture or I don't know, I'm just not great at it. And so I've been a little bit intimidated with teaching art. And so recently I started looking into other options, other alternatives. And I found this amazing subscription box by another homeschool mom. This is not sponsored, but I did get a free box to show you guys. I really just absolutely love it. I think it's so cool, and it's supporting another homeschool mom. It's called Classy Artist Box, and they have different boxes for different age ranges. So they do have an older version as well if your children are older. But I got one for the elementary age, and so my 4-year-old, my 7-year-old, and my 10-year-old all can do it. There's ways to make it work for each age. So my 4-year-old obviously can't do everything my 10-year-old can do, but they help kind of scaffold it for each age. There's videos. They give you a box every month with some supplies. We've got these really pretty watercolor palettes this month, and then there are step-by-step guides for each art project, and they're learning different skills with their painting in each box. And so I highly recommend it. I'm really excited to use it in the future. So if you're looking for something for art, even if you don't go with that box, just looking for some kind of subscription box, or maybe a website where they have different videos you can follow, can take the pressure off of you if it's something you're not great at. And this goes kind of for any subject. If there's something you just don't feel confident in, I'm pretty sure there is some kind of online option or subscription box, like for science, and online resources for every subject out there if you need a little bit of extra help. Here's another meal one for you. If you have a child who's older and able, I highly recommend rotating who makes lunch. I have started doing this, and actually we do it for breakfast as well too, because my oldest just really loves to cook, and so she will just ask to make breakfast, and now they kind of fight over who gets to make lunch. I still do it pretty often, but if you have kids who either are really wanting to or just are really capable, you can start to, you know, put some of that responsibility on them, because these are great skills for them to have when they get to adulthood, so that they're practicing their knife skills and their cooking skills and things like that. And it's great. Lunch and breakfast are great options for this, because you're usually not doing something super elaborate and difficult, but it's still learning basic, you know, cooking and kitchen skills. This year I bought a lined stencil, and we have used it so many times. I bought it for written and illustrated narration this year, because we started doing that, where I just take like a half watercolor sheet and then I add some lines with our line stencil, and that way they can draw a picture of what we read and then write about it, narrate it about it in written form. But you can use a line stencil for so many things. Like if your kid does a drawing but they want to write something about it, get your line stencil out. If they are nature journaling and they have like a watercolor sketchbook for their nature journal, you can add nice straight lines with a pen and then have them write about it there. I don't know why, but this is just such a useful thing to have that I'm sure we will use every week until the end of our homeschooling journey. Another thing we started to be more intentional about is bedtime. Now, we've always done bedtime with our kids, reading, you know, connecting, singing, praying. But now that my oldest is 10, I have started using this as a time to really feed into her and to have some time for those life questions. She's getting to that age where we're learning about puberty, we're learning about boys, and talking about marriage and dating and all of the things, body changes, mood changes. And so Because she has 3 little siblings, this isn't always appropriate or easy to do, especially since she's getting to that preteen age where it's embarrassing to her sometimes. So having this time at bedtime carved out for her, not every single day, but a few times a week, where we can just sit and talk. And then I also have been fitting in readings during this time about these subjects, and I can put a link to a couple books below if you guys are interested. So I will read a few pages or a chapter with her out of these books, and then I ask, is there anything on your heart or on your mind that you want to talk about? Even though we're with our kids all day, it still can be hard to fit in those conversations and find time to fit them in. And quite honestly, I'm really tired at the end of the day, so if I didn't have this planned, I might get a little like, not frustrated, but just be like, oh, okay, she wants to talk. But if I have it scheduled, then I look forward to it. I know it's gonna happen. She doesn't feel like she's bothering me, and we carve out that time. And I plan to do this with all of my kids as they get older. I highly recommend every homeschool family have a structured, divided tote. I have used this thing so much. It was not very expensive, and it has allowed me to bring homeschooling on the go so many different times. I have especially used it when we go to co-op. I taught watercolor this past year, and so I had paper towels, paint, art supplies. I also did narration, so I had a chapter book to bring and just lots of random stuff, and I could easily put it in my tote and bring it along. If you're ever homeschooling on the go, maybe your kids have piano lessons and they all go one at a time and you play outside or something, you can bring homeschooling on the go. If you're going on a picnic and you're gonna bring some homeschool stuff along, or you just have random toys you wanna bring along, you can use your bag. If you want to homeschool around the house and it's a lot of stuff to bring, you can keep your homeschooling stuff in a tote or just put it in a tote and go. If you want to homeschool in the backyard, you get the gist. And last up, this one goes a lot with the first one I shared, but it can be really helpful to just assign a line leader every day. We did this for a while, and then I kind of thought maybe we won't need it anymore, but we are back to having a line leader. So basically every day one of my kids is a line leader. So when they fight over who gets to open the door first, or like race to get into the car first, they don't do that anymore because the line leader always gets to go first. Now with the things like the resurrection eggs or certain things where we want to keep it fair, I still do the clothespin trick, but for anything else, like who gets to pick the show or who gets to pray at dinner, like whatever it is, it's amazing what kids can fight about. The line leader is the one who gets to do it, and it has saved me so much sanity. I don't think I'll ever stop doing this at this point, because every time I've stopped, it's never worked out well. So I highly recommend having a line leader. I hope these tips were helpful and they made you giggle a little. Hopefully I'm not the only one who struggles with some of these things, and if so, judge me all you want, I guess. I'm just over here living my life, trying to be the best mom I can be and stay sane in the process. So I hope these hacks were helpful. I would love if you would leave a hack of your own in the comments so we can get some inspiration from each other. And if you can't think of one, let me know what was your favorite in this video. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Happy homeschooling.